We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey.
So Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited about today's podcast because this is going to be a really interesting conversation. And we're going to talk about the masculine and the feminine energy. And I'm going to let you talk more about that. I also took your test and you'll talk about that and the results as well. So why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Lisa. It's so great to be here and see you again. I know you and I had already had a pre-conversation that we just fell in love with each other. Yeah, so good to see you.
Thank you.
I'm Sandy Sembler, and I have founded an internationally known women's group called SakredShe. And SakredShe is essentially originated from my healing journey, from where I've moved from old toxic patterns of after an intervention with Tony Robbins 10 years ago, where I was a self-proclaimed, driven, very much a go-getter. And I didn't realize that had a lot to do with why I was chewing up men and spitting them out. Like I didn't understand that was happening in relationship. I especially didn't understand that it was around trauma and things from my past. So we will definitely dive into that.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I just know for me, my passion right now in this space is to really, really affect 12 million lives with this work with SakredShe directly, Lisa, like what we talked about, like you and I in the space working together, but also how it's a ripple effect and how it will affect families, the way we work and we actually hire and fire, the way we show up, whether we're on the job or working with somebody else or in our own businesses. I found that I was leading a team, about 30,000 women, international team, helping them grow their businesses. And I could not believe how many women actually were successful, whatever they deemed successful, right? But they weren't fulfilled. And they still had this deep urge, this itch that needed to be scratched of being seen and heard and understood. And also, believe it or not, to feel safe. And, and I think if people could see us, if they were just observing us on this podcast today, recording, you and I are, I'm just going to say it, we're attractive women, and we're very strong and very assertive. And, like, what do you mean you don't feel safe? Like, what does that mean? And so
that's question,
right. I was very shocked by that because, I had this bravado. Like I traveled around the world by myself. I mean, I've lived by myself for years, and I didn't take pride in it as much as it was, well, of course, it was like obviously. And when I started thinking about it, I started thinking about the way my teacher started studying with all these teachers around the world around the feminine and masculine energetics. After I had my 4-hour intervention with Tony, I was fascinated with, wow, how many other women besides me are in this space where we're successful in life, outside of the home, but we're really feeling unfulfilled here. And I didn't necessarily find that it was just women who were divorced. It was actually because I was in a partnership at the time whenever I had that intervention, but also just within their home life. And as hormones are a part of this, and as we get older, whatever it was. And I did this deep dive with a teacher for a year. Also got to study 100 men, and every month we actually dove into like a thesis or a topic. And what really blew my mind was that this 1 month it was on, do men really like strong women? Like, what does that mean to a man? And 99 of the 100 men said that they loved a strong woman who was voluntarily vulnerable. And as we dove in, like, what exactly does that mean? What I found to be true is that they said, now these were healthy men that didn't actually need a woman from a codependent space, like need a woman on their arm or need a woman to need them from a place of scarcity because that gave them worth. These were men who were self-actualized. They really were conscious men. They were men who we had already basically vetted that they were safe men for us to, all these women in this certification to work with. And they went, we want to know if we go out of town or what have you, that this is a woman who can take care of herself, take care of our children, take care of, if she needs a tire fixed, whether she's working in or outside the home, and that she's with me because she chooses to be with me. And that when she chooses to surrender her heart, her body, her soul, that is because that she actually already knows that she knows that she knows that she knows that she's a queen, essentially. Like she knows who she is. And that makes the giving of us, like our essence as a woman, even more precious versus a woman who like, I need to have a man kind of a thing. Right.
That was my old energy for sure. I was, in order to feel valued, I had to have a man that told me I was valued.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with my work in the embodiment space. I'm trained with so many different teachers. And for me, how the embodiment work came in, not just the head knowledge of the masculine and the feminine, is that I realized that I had learned everything up here. But it really hadn't started like really permeating my body. And I still had, feelings of, not fear of intimacy, but probably using my body in ways that actually weren't my best and highest good, even though I knew the energies. I wanted to understand my body even more, understanding my yes and my no, because, what the audience may not know is, the feminine, and this is so fun because the feminine in all of us, this is not gender specific. And the work that I teach is, Willie will work with same-sex couples as well. But since you and I are married to men, I'll just use it for that, for the better sake of the conversation. The feminine in all of us is the creative part of us. It's the part of us that can slow down and allow our hearts to connect to whatever that is. Feeling into, is this really the best use of my time and your time for us to be here? And there's like, and is it better for the world? Because I know you're here to help change the world like me, one podcast at a time, one client at a time, right? And exactly. So that's the intuition. It really doesn't come too much from here. It really comes from here. And quite frankly, down there, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Right. And then once we can have that heart connection and everything starts flowing, and then that feminine intuition, our woman's intuition, it's something that is always there. We're born with it. Unfortunately, whether it's, hereditary things passed down generationally, or generally it's just culture, what's happening in the world. Let's face it, it's very different to be a woman today than it was, even a few years ago.
Yeah.
And even a man as well, even more so, as you and I spoke. And the other piece though is that as we learn to trust ourselves again. So I work with women of all ages, essentially from 14 to 80. But what I love is to really touch base with women who might have already lost that part of their yes and their no. And I don't mean that yes and no, like take me kind of a thing, but I mean like, was this a good place for me to spend my time? And when I tap in, it was an absolute. And I can tell you there have been many times where I actually would override my intuition because I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. From my childhood scarcity space of being really, really poor and on the street, so to speak, like I needed to make money. And so it was like, where have I actually sold my soul, so to speak, to be able to make money to survive? And so, I'm sharing that because the feminine intuition is so strong, and there's so much now about feminine leadership, but that also seems like an oxymoron, because how can you be a leader and also be truly in your feminine? And that's why you must have a very strong masculine, and your masculine energy is going to be your boundaries. Your masculine is actually going to be the yes or no. So the intuition, the actual feeling like, that feels really good, that's a yes. The actual carrying out the yes or no is your masculine energy.
What a beautiful way to explain that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Seriously, I was like, oh, that's why it's good to have both. It's balancing.
Yes, you must. And I'd even say harmonizing, because you will notice you and I will. And I mean, obviously, if I was a very masculine being, 10 years ago, and you would see me, cute girl, all the things. And there's like a picture of me in my bolero with big Tony right here. but it was the way I was asking questions, like almost like staccato going cadence, trying to get the answer, the answer, figuring it out with mind, trying to understand it versus living in the void. Because there's something about the mystery of life, which is the feminine, being just so curious about, oh my goodness, I have 3 candles in front of me right now. So first off, setting a set and setting, wanting it to be beautiful, right? So I have they all smell differently. So every once in a while, because I'm so in tune with my 5 senses now, where I wasn't 10 years ago, right? Where I can go, oh, it smells like apricots. And like, oh, well, then over here, it smells a little bit like tobacco. And it's just, there was a time that I would never have even paid attention, something like that. Much less might light a candle, for God's sakes. I mean, that wasn't just for, aesthetics. So really getting in tune to the 5 senses helps a woman, really, really, really stay in the body and be in the body. And so we can make different decisions, and we can't be, in the boardroom, for example, and then also be able to, feel into what's best for the moment. So the feminine is actually a space where it's the creative side of us. It's actually the feeling what is right, and not just on our emotions. If I'm having a bad day, that it's the inner knowing. It's the inerrant knowing, the wisdom. It's also around the wildness. And I know for me, I was wild, but I did it in a very toxic way, like breaking the rules and, I'll break all the barriers. And I really realized that I believe God was calling me is to really get back in touch with that part of me, all women, of that part of us that is messy and will allow us to make mistakes and allow us to experience life. I always use the analogy of, I'm from South Carolina, and I don't care what anybody says, even though I'm talking to you from Georgia, who will say they have the best peaches. South Carolina has the best peaches. So I always use this analogy of, if you were sinking your teeth into like the juiciest peach, would you have like a napkin underneath it, so you catch the juices, or would you cut it up in little slices, or would you allow yourself just to take it and just chomp into it and let the juices just fall down your arm and let yourself just be immersed in the messiness and the yumminess of it? There's a time I was like, heck no. And I can tell you now, the way that I experience life is so different. I mean, even the way that I'll drink, bubble water, allowing sometimes just the effervescence of the bubbles just to be on my tongue, even if I'm in the middle of a coaching call. Because if I'm just in delivering and doing and offering advice and doing what I'm doing, I can lose my juice. Like right after teaching, I'm teaching my team, my group, my SakredShe group, a movement class tonight. And if I went straight from here with a little bit of a break, straight into that, and I didn't allow myself to have all this energy around me, I wouldn't show up great for them. And if I hadn't learned how to actually emote along the way, I would be exhausted by the end of this time together. And that doesn't serve anyone. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I talk about this because for this podcast, I mean, in doing all this podcast, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes behind it. And there's interviews and, there's a lot of prep work, which I actually love. But I have to manage my energy as well, because, I've done a lot of healing and my stories don't affect me the way they used to, but sometimes other people's stories, I'm hearing other people's stories and taking that in. And just like before I start these podcasts, there is if you want to, lack of a better term, ritual that I kind of go through, but I prepare myself, I prepare the room, I prepare the energy, I even get on my little trampoline and do a little minute jump on it to get my energy up,
Yes.
And I come in and I shut the door and I just have my time and I prepare myself for it, because there's a lot to say. Cause I know I used to be just get it done, just get it done, just get it done. Yeah. And you miss out on a lot of stuff when you're in that mode.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because I call it set and setting. It's like nesting. I mean, you basically are nesting, not just for yourself, but it is a way that you're actually taking care of all of us who are listening, your audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is really you're going to love this. This is like such a neat little turn on. In my community, we call it husbanding yourself. So if you're better to be able to feel into a room and feel into your guests on the show, or even feel into like your audience, what they need, there's a way that we husband ourselves, meaning that that you feel better. You're able to feel better if you have and that blows women's mind. They're like, wait a minute. My aunt is like, if you were the most perfect husband, how would you want to treat yourself? And so, something I do with women, even if they are in partnership, a great marriage, I know, which you have, is a lot of women will do something what I like to call, and it's one part of my program around the masculine cleanse. And it really is a way where you're able to heal your own inner masculine, right? And learn how to actually basically date yourself.
Ooh.
And it's super beautiful. It's so, yeah, I tell you what, you are like the perfect, off the clock, but you are like the perfect, like ideal client for me. Someone who really has, is self-actualized and really knows it. And she serves a lot and, able to hold so much more space and have fun doing it. And learning also, this helped me understand, and I know we're going to talk about sacred respect a little bit while I'm on here too. This really, so I blend in this piece into that course too, but how do I show up for the masculine anyway? Not just in men, but for myself. Like, am I not on time? Am I not paying my bills on time? Am I not, am I like perpetually late, or am I always waiting to the last minute? Or is it hard for me to make decisions? Am I indecisive? Because I don't know about you, but I can tell you one of the biggest turnoffs is to be in the presence of a man who is wishy-washy and can't make his own decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love my son. I was a single mom for years to one son. And, another way this work has helped me so much is, and I wish I would have known it before he was already out of the house, so to speak, but how was I, not honoring him? How was I emasculating him? How was I attempting to control him, not in a helicopter way, but more of just letting him make a mistake and make some decisions. And so, I can see where in my attempt to, I wanted him to make decisions, but sometimes I was impatient, like, okay, hurry up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so,
yes.
And again, and that's also where it's so beautiful. And I have a lot of single moms who've done work with me to slow their roll, slow it down, have their own husband themselves, have their own practice where they, because I teach movement. How can they actually give themselves 10 minutes of the movement that I teach that allow them to have more of their vessel can hold more. Like lungs, when lungs are trained, lungs can hold more. And, the more that we do breath work, for example, we actually will, have less breathing problems. They've actually proven that people that were doing breath work and meditation, during COVID, for example, if they did get COVID, they actually healed faster because they had worked out their lungs.
That makes sense.
Doesn't it? Yeah. So for someone who holds space like you, and for me, having a strong masculine is actually important, because then you can hold more and your boundaries. So you basically let it, you don't have to like bring it all in. So there's a lot of ways that's why I love working with people who are like out there in the world. Definitely works at home too, for sure, especially when you got little ones, but also out there in the world, because we don't have to take on everybody's stuff. And we also, there is a middle ground. We don't have to be, like a Peggy pleaser,
right.
Or, this boss babe who doesn't let anybody in. There is a nice way that we get to interact and engage, and choose who we spend time with, whether it's almost like your dating life, your dating life versus just dating your partner or dating your prospective partner. So
that's a great way to put it, dating life. Oh, I'm writing that down. I like that.
Good.
Because then you're being selective.
Totally selective, which is your masculine energy. But then also, let me put this in there as well. It's being very curious, letting the feminine be like, well, so what this mean if I went on this podcast? I'm a yes. So how can I make it really juicy? Like, what can I say here? Or for women that are on a date, for example, with a new perspective, and they sit down and they're like, well, he didn't look anything like the profile. And instead of going like, great, another one, check. I always say, leave that man better than you found him.
Oh, yeah.
And not just in a, oh yeah, like bless his little heart kind of a thing, more of like, can you like get centered? And can you like, okay, how can I actually evoke more of his consciousness? How can I evoke more of his masculinity? How can I do that? And there's a way we can do that without being coquettish. It's actually a beautiful way that I teach women how to evoke the masculine within another. And that way, and let's just say, for example, what is that term? I've only dated online like twice, literally, in my lifetime. And
I met my husband online.
You did? Okay.
And my son met his wife on, both
Really?
of us on eHarmony. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, perfect. It's a great endorsement for eHarmony. But and
I
there's
know, right?
what is that? Is it called catfishing? Like with someone?
Oh yeah, the fake profiles and the fake, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about that. So let's just say you've been catfishing. For anybody who doesn't know, essentially you may say you're 5'10", you show up and you're 5'4". Let's just go there, right? Or they look a completely different way than they do. And maybe that's not technically, I think it's catfish when they literally are somebody different, or
sometimes they'll steal someone else's identity.
Ooh.
Completely. Yeah, they'll completely steal someone else's identity. And sometimes it'll be a man portraying themselves as a woman. And so it's, and it's just, it's bad because they draw these people in emotionally.
Got it. And then they want to meet them. Got it. Well, we're not talking about that. And that's also where, ladies, that you like train that feminine intuition. I call it dating intentionally as well. I train women how to ask questions without sounding like they're interviewing them. It's more like you become the woman that you need to be in order to attract your warrior king. And that comes with your own recipe that we workshop for you. And you really do walk and talk like her. And that also means that you may climb a tree, because you've got to really evoke one of those 10 women that I think that lives inside of us. I mean, you have to be curious and have fun. So each date becomes so much different than another step to meeting a partner, as if it's like begrudgingly going to do that. Like you have to go to the dentist, twice a year. More of like, I get to go on this date. I wonder what I'm going to invoke from this masculine this time. And then, and to show up and be really curious, which is a hell of a lot more exciting energetically than, okay.
Yeah. I hated that. Oh my gosh. I felt like, it totally felt like an interview.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. I mean, let's face it. It actually is. And does it really need to feel like it, or can, this is what I did with, meeting my husband too. And, teaching women this is that it can be a space of inquiry, but get more curious about yourself. Like, how is your body responding to this person in front of you? And it'll blow your mind. I mean, again, I'll go back to, and John and I have like a series of reels on my Instagram, which I'm sure you'll have that in the show notes, my link there. But
yes,
I love to teach the reels. And there's one where he knocks on the door, and I open the door, and he's like, "Hey babe, where you want to go tonight?" And you watch my face like, ugh, because I've been working all day. The last thing I want to do at the end of the day is decide where in the heck we're going to go to dinner again. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't, this is not black and white, obviously, for the sake of theater. We're like, right. But there's something to be said that we want to be, and I'm just going to say this, whether it's politically correct or not, because it's primal. I have never met a woman that when I really get to know her, and generally for me, it could be 5 minutes, because I just have a way. I mean, I would ask women this question, is if they complain about their partner, or especially if a man shares with me about their partner, like she's just done. Like she's just done. And like, is she really done? Like, no, I think she's really done. We've been married 25 years and blah, blah, blah. This is literally something that happened with my well, I won't say that, but someone that I work with professionally. And he said that, and I said, well, when's the last time you walked up to her in the kitchen, took her coffee cup, set it down, looked her right in the eye, and you slowly like push her up against the stove or the cabinet or the wall, put her hands over her head, and you kissed her with abandon? He went, maybe never, or maybe in college. I said, so I can promise you that if generally by the time a woman is ready to step out, it's generally because we feel so unmet. We don't feel safe, heard, understood, and we don't feel safe. And safety is not just like security, like we talked about, but it's a provision And now with the modern day woman, I like to say I teach the modern day woman that she can still be successful outside of the home, but also to know who she is. As I mentioned earlier with those men, is that, provision doesn't have to just be money. Provision could be a matter of this person honoring their word, and you're safe knowing that you can rest into his leadership.
Yes,
right?
You can trust him.
100%. And is he trustworthy? So there's a process we take women through of, are you trustworthy first, meaning you've healed your own masculine, right? But also, are you, and not just honoring your word, like I'll be here on time, but more of, I have a standard. I have a standard of how I want to feel at the end of the day. When I ask myself, how did I live? How did I love? How do I matter? And when you live your life in hindsight, knowing you're going to ask yourself those 3 same questions every night, you better believe you're going to husband yourself very differently than if I was just like willy-nilly with how I show up in the world. So my husband, not literally my husband, but my inner husband is like I'm in the mountains right now. And I can tell you, we normally go to the mountains during the summer, Lisa, and we didn't do that this year. And I will tell you, I will never, to the day I die, I will never, ever, 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 to infinity, ever, John, when you're listening to this, I will not go this long without being in the mountains. Because even though I'm Sandy, literally my name, and we live on the beach, I've shifted, I've changed. I actually would prefer, I come alive.
Yeah.
And at my creative center, I mean, this whole body is on fire. And I literally got in the dirt today, and I put on my music, and I was like moving to the music and laying down and seeing all of this. Again, something I wouldn't have done 10 years ago. But I was like, I must be in this type of nature because it's better for the world. I've written more since I've been here. I have been more inspired. And that's also, by the way, when we decided not to do that at the beginning of the summer, we canceled our trip that I normally take. Now, again, John and I have only been together 5 years. I've been going to the mountain during the summer almost every year for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
But because there was something that came up with him, and he asked if we could maybe not go this year, I'll be honest with you and everybody else listening. There was something that was like, no, it wasn't just a bratty, like, no.
Yeah. She's like, no.
It was like it was more of like a part of me like died. It was like this interesting feeling, and I will never, ever, because I'm better for the world. If everything goes this better for the world. So I say that. So here I am. I got remarried later in life, which so many people do. And we all come, right? We all come with our own experiences. I won't even call it baggage, but opportunities for growth. And, how can we blend, something as simple as that, like going to the mountains, like, what's the big deal? But my husband was corporate for 25 years and he's an entrepreneur now. So he's learning a new way of living a little bit more open. And being an entrepreneur, you already are living in, you can be a very masculine being, but just the risk taking alone is being curious about what's on the other side, which is actually somewhat of a feminine trait, like wanting that variety. Now the type of risk that you take, is more of the masculine trait. Like, you want hedge funds, or let's just like crypto,
right. Yeah.
Right. So, again, you can see how I love teaching this work within businesses, and the way with people that work just, for themselves or other people, because this is the everyday work versus when I first started doing this work, I would go to, goddess circles, and I would go to Sedona, like I mentioned, and I love that. And I host retreats there, and it's all fantastic. But I'm like, what about when we're home? Yeah. What about when our kids, and I'm pointing over here because they already have their tree up in the place I'm renting. What about when I'm decorating my Christmas tree, and I used to be kind of anal about it. Like I wanted it to look a certain,
oh, we have a little friend. That's okay.
This is Lucas. Yes.
Hi, Lucas.
This is Lucas. Hey, buddy. He's been such a good boy.
Yeah.
But this is, there was a time, Lisa, that I would have let the kids decorate the tree, and then I would have gone behind them, and or I would have actually go and like move the ornaments, or even do it with them, because I wasn't a perfectionist, but I just wasn't thinking about their little hearts.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we're all like, just like me. I mean, I'm sure there's women like, oh yeah, that's me too.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, you know what? Let's just, if I could do it all over again and do a take two, right? Oh my gosh. I mean, can we just talk about being a mom for a second or being a parent?
I know.
Right.
There's a few things I do different.
100%. Like 18, there's 18 Christmases. Who gives a darn where the Christmas ornaments are? Especially if it's a boy. And hear me out. How many of us have had like our sons, or I love working with teachers who have the beautiful privilege, and thank God for the teachers out there, that to shape our little men. And most teachers, or let's face it, are women. And so for women to go through my work, it really has changed the way they view these little guys, because they realize that they are imprinting something in these kids. So let's say it's a second grader and he wants to help, Mrs. Harris, put the books away that just came in. And she has a certain way, like the Christmas tree, she wants to have it done. And so she says, no, I'll do it myself. By the way, any of us as adult women go like, no, that's okay. Putting your suitcase up, no, I'll do it myself. Mm-hmm. When a masculine being asks if they can help you, just thank you and look them right in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now, because so many men are afraid to be men.
Yeah.
Is it even okay to open a door? I mean,
they don't know how to be a man. Like, right. Things are changing so rapidly. They don't know.
Exactly. So I think anytime, and I know that the women who work with me, I can say this, I know it to be true. It will shift the way you actually accept compliments. Yes. Like I received that, like, thank you. I really received that, not just from men, but even from women. When you shared like that, the way I explained something, I'm like, gosh, I received that. Like I really am able to feel what it feels like to accept your words as truth.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there's a part of it's like, I could have delivered that better. Or like this shirt, like you can say, oh, that looks great on you. I'm like, you really think so? But instead of like, oh, I received that. And it trains the nervous system to be able to energetically receive more compliments. Right.
I know. Cause I used to not be able to take compliments. Like if you said, oh, I like your hair. Oh, it's just dirty. Oh, today it's dirty girl hair, and I wouldn't. And now it's just like, thank you. I appreciate that. And that doesn't even come up anymore. But for years, I used to do that. You give me a compliment and I would give you a reason why you shouldn't have given me a compliment.
Exactly. And it is. And and I'll tell you primarily why that is. So I would invite you to even go deeper with it and really feel it. Like, by the way, your hair is on fire. Your hair is so shiny tonight. And so like, I'm looking at your hair going like, wow, what kind of shampoo does she use? And so, which is a genuine compliment, by the way. And so
thank you.
But I want you to actually really like, just go feel what I'm saying, like your heart just swell with what I'm sharing, and just go, I received that. So I'll do it again.
It still gets uncomfortable.
I know. We're going to do it again. Take two. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So
I know.
we'll do it again. Take two. I literally have director things to say take two, right? They're over there. And pom-poms. Everybody in my community has pom-poms, and the director take two. Take two. Oh my gosh. Lisa, I didn't notice the other night when we talked, but wow, your hair. Like I am, like, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful and shiny. And wow, I'm just like taken aback.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And just literally just feel it. Like I received that. That's what you're supposed to say. Those are your lines.
Oh, I received that. I receive that. I feel it and I receive it.
Yeah.
I had to take it in for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, everywhere, if you could see her, I could feel you taking it in. And so the way I gave that compliment, by the way, is something that I've learned through this work. Is the masculine in us is the seer. It's the observer. So instead of just saying, your hair is so pretty, which would have been fine, I would rather actually give you something specific. So the masculine in you is like, oh, she really loved my hair. She said it was really shiny. She said it was this. And so it's something that we can have agency over. So that's why in workshop form, when we're working with couples, especially, but the same thing works when I have my women's workshop, and we may have one woman playing the masculine pole and the other is playing the feminine. The brain doesn't know the difference. Even as the two of us could be doing this together, and I could hold the masculine pole. after a while, your brain will not know the difference that I'm a woman, because I'm going to be holding so much space for you as you're moving your body and following my lead. So it's fascinating. And the way to give feedback is, what I loved about that practice, Lisa, was I loved how you took a second and to really like inhale, and then I heard you exhale. I saw you lean back a bit, to receive that. And I really felt you receiving what I was giving you. And it really touched me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then what I would need more of, this is the other way. Yeah. What I need more of, right, is for you to think about it. I'm saying, because you did that so well. Put your hand on your heart to really feel yourself receiving it. And on the exhale, say, I receive that.
Receive that.
You felt it even deeper. And I felt you feeling like I've got those God bumps all over my body, right? I can see your eyes, your eyes are lit up, a little twinkly. And so that's a beautiful way to give feedback, where you're able to really see into someone. Like, what I really loved about that practice with you was this. And then what I would need more of, and when we're doing masculine and feminine, like men and women, it's generally like what I would need more of to follow you and allow you to lead me into eternity. And then, so, okay, it's got to be specific too,
right?
Specific feedback. And that just shows that your masculine is strong, because you're really observing. And then for the feminine beings, it's more, the masculine being, as in order for me to lead you into eternity, what I would need. And then they share, and it changes the game big time. Right. And so, it's just it's a fascinating practice to pay attention to your surroundings, obviously, but to do it in a way through different eyes of how can I improve my own being, like how I'm showing up, but also how could I add more love to the room? I mean, to me, everything is like, how can we add more love to the space? And to me, to be able to offer a compliment like that, that's more specific, will allow you to drink it in, I mean, even if you wouldn't have received it that way. I know who I'm being in the moment, and I know that it was sincere, where some people may be like, oh, she's just saying that because she's on her podcast, kind of a thing. But I know who I'm being within my body. Like, I know, I know that I know who I am as my masculine confidence. So, I mean, I know I love how we're just taking this topic and we're just flowing with it. And I'm sharing some of or a lot of the nuances with the masculine, the feminine. And
it's been so interesting though, because, and it makes so much sense about what the masculine looks like and what the feminine looks like. And I never knew that. I mean, I'm learning so much ever since our pre-podcast interview. And I have to say, I have a little confession. When we were talking in the pre-interview, you had mentioned in your bio about how you would shred men you felt you perceived as weak. Yes. Like you could emasculate a man. And I remember when I read that, I went, ooh, that hits home, because that's something that I used to do to my ex-husband, actually.
Okay.
And I used to, that was a big thing. I don't do that anymore. But one thing that I realized in all that is like, why did that hit me so hard? And I don't know if I said it in our interview, but I did a lot of processing and actually talked to my therapist about it, is that the reason why weak men hit me so hard is because my father was so weak. And I didn't even realize that until like, I think after we hung up, and I was like, I thought about it, I'm like, that's it. It's because my dad was weak. He was.
We touched on that. And it was really beautiful, your share. And thank you for bringing that here, because, by the way, I mean, just like me in the sense of, God bless my daddy, he's in heaven, but he was, he didn't speak his truth. That led us to our home foreclosing and things like that when I was little. And so I can effectively blame him and thank him, for the way he was, because it's made me into who I am. And I also know that if there would have been a little bit of difference, I'm sure just like you, then we would not have felt like we needed to shred men. And I can share a little why we do that if you'd like, as women. Okay. And by the way, thank you so much for your vulnerability. That is, to have that awareness is incredible. And thank you for letting me know that was something that you and I talked about that led you there. Because to me, that's the gift of sharing our story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was just going to say too, and it's kind of opened up a can of worms with me right now. So I'm working through it because there's a lot of realization that's going on.
Okay, great. Yeah. And if there's anything I could do to serve you with that within the work that I do, because that is how I started this journey, is, moving away from where, I had been abused from my ex-husband, and then also realizing how much of that, not that I ever say I deserve that ever, but what I mean is that just my history with men in general. Because remember, again, this is primal. When a woman doesn't feel seen, heard, understood, or feel safe, there is a way women will inherently test. We will test to see if this person's strong enough. Just like when I was getting approved to adopt out of the foster system, one of the things is that, they talk about how the kids they assume that they're going to be given away to another foster mom or parents or what have you. They already feel unwanted. They already feel abandoned. So they will go ahead and they presupposed, why would they not, that's going to happen? So they will presuppose that something is going to happen to them. So why don't they go ahead and just test to see if that person, are you strong enough to be my mom? Are you man enough to be my man?
So that makes sense.
It's primal. It is. And it's not, I'm not saying the part of it is healthy. It just depends on how you do it and how long you do it and how long will you. And so we will criticize. We will complain, we will control. And so those 3 C's, also we will close. So those are those on the other side for men. When we talk about what does a man want, I'm on a gentleman's podcast tomorrow, and it's all about what does a man really want and what do women really want. So to your story and what you just beautifully shared, by the way, just like me, that was me as well. My husband and I, even with my husband who I love and I know this work, I believe the last 5%, like I mentioned, will get healed in partnership, like I said. So there was still a part of me that, I have 50 years in this body. Of course, even though I know what I know and I've done so much somatic healing, my ego brain's like, right, sure, whatever. Let's see what he's got. You know what I mean? And so again, we women, we will, let me go back to something real quick about not accepting compliments. If you go like old primal times, very community spaces, women want to fit in. We want to fit in because that's safe. Will you sit at my lunch table? Will you this? Because the weakest link is going to be kicked out. And so we want to be accepted. And there's something regarding women that if you would say, oh, thank you, I received that, then other women, if they're not self-actualized, are like, golly, who does she think she is?
Oh, yeah.
And it is like years and years and years of conditioning. Like I'm not going to fit in. And if I don't fit in, it's not about getting asked to bunko or getting asked to, out for cheerleading or whatever. It's more of, am I going to get eaten? Am I going to survive? And some people may hear this and go like, whatever, but you and I both know, and I can feel your heart right now. That is truth. And and I love to take women to the point of feeling that feeling of, yeah. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that we close, because again, go back to the C's, the closure of our energy puts us right into the chute of the masculine.
Right.
Because when we're closed, we're not experiencing life. Life becomes pretty flat. So I am generally, if a man has stepped out of the relationship, for example, or has turned to the sports car or whatever it is, it's generally because of why people have been married for years and years and years, and their man is going through what some people call it midlife crisis. In my community, we call it the tunnel, because hormonally things are changing. If we can have more energy than whatever it is that they are excited about, the Super Bowl, their phone, another woman. If we can have more energy, meaning like not just like, but I mean like a light, Like, are we a light? Are we effervescent? Are we, it's a feminine being. And then that may sound foreign even to you right now, but the way I take women into that space, and you've now spent a couple hours with me, from being here and then before, you can see how I'm sitting in the same doggone place. I could literally not have moved since the last time I talked to you. But the way I'm living life, even though I've been going through some things since I've been here. There's been like a lot of tears and a lot of emotion. And again, I will tell you this, years ago, I would have never been able to feel those feelings, but it makes me a deeper, richer, wider person in the way I experience life. So again, closing of the energy. I find that women that have been sexually abused, for example, of course, are going to be closed because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. It's not, in New York, for example, the reason why I want to get a New Yorker into my world, it's like, yes, because she, of course, she's in this space, like go, 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 always looking forward. She needs to be, but will she allow herself to learn to trust that, giving her those moments where she can like let her hair down and let herself feel her body even more, knowing that she can, again, trust herself to be like this. And even like wearing something underneath, maybe her suit, that brings out something like nice and sensual to her. But, this is a very intentional practice. Once it gets in you, it becomes more natural, but you better believe, I'm up here by myself in the mountains. And I'm used to having my husband with me. So this has been a little interesting being here. I've noticed that what I'm going to do before I go home, I've asked John to not actually be at the house for at least like a couple hours when I get home, because I need to get back into my body.
Ease.
Yeah, being his wife. Because I'm my wife, I'm husband, I'm mama, I'm daddy, seriously. And so again, it's so interesting, the practice I'll give a woman if she works outside of the home, even if working outside the home, if she goes from like her office to the family room, COVID really helped us obviously work at home more, but especially if your partner travels a lot and then comes home, there's a way that you can bring yourself back to, go from masculine life and work, bringing yourself back into home life so you can be for your partner, for yourself, and for your family. So that's close. And, you had mentioned this has brought up things for you and like the criticism also is a way, it's basically like it's a condom, emotional condom that keeps us, that is a way for us to tell a man essentially that we don't trust them. And generally it means because we don't trust ourselves as we get older, because the truth is that your dad's not here controlling the universe for you, and your beautiful nervous system and brain, even though it sounds like you've done a lot of work, and I know you have, there can be little triggers. And I've had something happen this year between John and myself. It's like, oh, whoa, I worked through this. What is that about? And it was around like just buying a new house and some things I mentioned earlier here. The brain is made to keep us safe, not happy, and our body keeps score. And so the more that we have these practices that I'm mentioning that help us like move the energy out, we can actually hold more and feel it, because I truly believe we must feel it to heal it. So I'm excited, even though you're uncomfortable, that you're starting to feel what you're feeling. And then it's like, well, what do I do with it? And that's why I think talk therapy is important up to a point, but there's got to be a way that you can embody, not just you, but everybody, embody more of that and let your body feel the feeling of being alive. Like, where are you feeling that sadness? Where are you feeling that fear? Where are you feeling that grief? Where are you feeling that pissed offness? Like, why? And sometimes if you're really in the feminine being, I have a practice I will share with you privately, because we've talked enough that I know you can handle this too, but it's a simple practice about allowing yourself to feel the feelings that you're feeling moment to moment to moment. And of course, we take it deeper, but so there's control is the other piece of, like I mentioned earlier about, helicoptering. Yeah. And we do that with our husbands and our partners. And, it's, we loved his ruggedness. We loved the fact that he rode motorcycles. We thought that was so hot, and he was a risk taker. And then all of a sudden we're married And the primal part of it is like, oh my God, where's my protector? Where's my provider?
Exactly.
Oh, I'm going to be like a single mom. No. And then the very thing we loved about this man, we're trying to take it away. And if he's a pleaser, he hasn't healed his stuff, and he is like, well, all right. And then guess what? You don't trust him because he allowed you, even though it was something you wanted, right? I mean, we've all done this. You get what you want, but you really don't want that. It's a way that you were attempting to test. And he honestly, even though he gave you what he wanted, is why men were like, I can't make her happy. Because what they understand is that we actually want them to know who the heck they are and not let us sway them. Because a man that can be swayed is not a trustable man inherently.
That's true. That is very, very true.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. See, thinking. Processing.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's all good stuff. It's stuff that, part of what is tripping me up is, I shouldn't say trip me up, but making me really think and process is I'm realizing the depth of how much my dad didn't protect me and how scared he was. And just, and you pointed something out in the call, and you were right when I said, because I had said, my father had literally ran away, and I said, but I understand, he has his own trauma, and you called me on that, and you were right. And that's the part that made me think. It's like, I stopped, and that made me realize how many things throughout my life that I let him off the hook, because of the three in my family, there was my mom, my dad, and my brother, and all three abused me. My dad was my safest one. My dad was my buddy. My dad, I loved my dad. I liked my dad. I loved my mom. I didn't like her. So I hung out with my dad. So you can see why this is bending my brain a little bit.
100%.
Now I'm going, oh, you know what? And I'm not going, well, he did have his own trauma. Yeah. Well, I had my own trauma, and, I had to deal with it, so I'm taking that off the plate. And so that's just, you can see why that's opening up.
Girl, no, I can feel that. And I'd love to take it in addition to what your therapist is doing with you in the mind, is to allow your body. There's some things, I mean, we don't have to do that here, but there's some ways that you can process that and really feel that. And I'm imagining when you actually really connect to, you connect to the little girl in you.
Oh yeah.
Really allow, and then also the inner teenager, which we don't talk about enough in this therapeutic world.
It's interesting you say that, because I've had the conversation with little Lisa. It's teenage Lisa that I'm working with right now, because she's the one that really got the brunt of it. And so I've worked through little Lisa a lot and given her a voice that she didn't have. It's teenage Lisa that I'm working with right now, because she really did. She got the brunt of the abuse by all three.
Okay, this is great. Are you open to us sharing something here? I mean, I guess obviously you could always edit it, but I first off, I feel you so deeply. I mean, thank you for trusting me, and if you choose to put this out there, because I know it will serve people, and it also just again proves to me that my story matters, because even though I wasn't physically abused as a child, there was definitely neglect. Definitely neglect. I mean, still like the CPTSD piece is big, which I didn't even know what that was till this year. Like the neglect is that slow drip of hormones of, if you were abused at home by all three people in your home, for goodness sakes, I'm deeply sorry you had to experience that, and home was not a place of safety for you. I can relate in a different fashion. But it's, I'm sure that made you even more of a hypervigilant, amazing mom in so many ways. I understand that. And so that part of you and just like me, that inner Sandy teenager that just wanted to be seen, and I know when I started working with sacred rage, like open-hearted rage, like a temper practice, like that part of just, there's a way to move that through us, and it's not closed-hearted. It's a way to actually really feel that, and you go more than you allow yourself. Like put on, like I have a playlist I can send you. It's on my Spotify. Anybody can find it, but it's and you get like a wiffle ball bat, And you like literally go on Amazon, you can wiffle ball bat, or there's I can send you a link. There's like these dolls that the women in my group get. I say get a bat. You can use a pillow for God's sakes, but you literally, if I was with you, you can do it yourself. But you want to listen to this music that's going to evoke something like, for me, for some people it's Britney Spears, for some people it's Miley Cyrus, for some people it could be Amazing Grace. For me it's like Nine Inch Nails, like raw, and it is a guttural feeling of just grief leaving the body. But it starts because anger is the first emotion.
Yep.
But I'm like, yeah, whatever. Anger is so easy to access for many. What's underneath that? And then I'd use this practice, like what's underneath that? Because that's the emotion that we generally are running away from,
Correct.
And it is because it's gnarly. Because if we're courageous enough, so that also shows, like we talked before getting on the call, is how your feminine is like, it's you're more feminine than you think at your core, because it's like budding. It's budding over here because you're curious. Like, what does this mean? Versus like, nope, I'm good. You're like, well, what does this mean? And to be able to feel that fully. So that sacred rage is incredible in a container. We obviously don't want to be whack-a-moling it everywhere, but 10-minute practice.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, even just a full like 4 minutes, you don't stop as soon as you feel the tears or you feel whatever's coming up for you. You want to actually feel everything fully. And there's some women who have been working with me, and I give them like a 30-day, just a temper tantrum practice when they haven't really touched base with their little girl. And they're like, you want me to pitch a temper tantrum? Like, even if I'm not upset, I'm like, yep. Because there's a part of you inside that is feeling little, I call my little girl little Simone. Like she's felt so invisible for so long, like, see me. So, when my teachers gave this to me, I'm like, literally, and I have a reel about this on my Instagram too, is give yourself just a 1 or 2 minute, like, I don't wanna, and really feel yourself like a brat. Like if you're at the airport, you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe that's going on. Be that kid, because God loved that kid. Because they have not been wounded by somebody telling them that they shouldn't. They feel their feelings fully. And for the teenager, like, hello, teenage Lisa, and my like Simone, that, caused a lot of trouble to get attention and to feel loved, right? That was my jam is, I feel you, sister. I mean, that is like, I wanted to be seen. And so, but I didn't want to make waves at home. So I did things like covertly and, like shot and slept with boys and, stuff that only myself. I mean, that's the funny thing is I was trying to get back at the world, but I was just hurting myself. So like, hats off to you. And I'll share that practice with you off the, I won't do it in the show notes. I'll send it to you, but there's so much somatically. And so somatic is not just breath work. And so again, so we've got criticize, complaining is the other C. If I complain enough, then he'll change. Versus, I have a beautiful way that you can ask a man for anything. We call it the great ask. There's a way you can ask a man for anything, and not just a man. I mean, I go with, with the penis, but or your sons, but I mean the masculine in any of us. Like, how can I ask? And it's not about, it really is about what it is that you speak to their heart. Because I pretty much believe that most men are good men. At least they one time. And they really do want to make us happy.
Yeah. They just got into this world and got all.
Yeah. And we use so many words. Women use so many words. And when I'm sharing with women, you can literally get more across with fewer words, but being more expressed.
Right. Right. Less words. Yep.
It blows women's minds. So, and again, understand, for anybody who's listening to the same, I have all those C's. I do that often. And that's where the Sacred Respect course, I know that we're offering to your audience at a discount as well, because of this reveal that you and I talked about on our interview. But I want women to feel those feelings and understand where it comes from. You're not a bad person for it. It generally comes, just like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, my emasculation of men came from being in survival mode.
Yep. Me too. Yep.
Yeah,
survival
mode,
100%. 100%. I did that. And when you're in survival mode, there is like no self-awareness. There's just, I got to get through the day.
Yeah. I mean, I said getting things done for me. And my jam was, it was around finances. I can say if my husband was ever infidelity in our marriage, I would rather it be seriously, it's not going to happen. Cancel. It would be around sex over finance, because my daddy didn't leave me because he cheated on my mom. There was financial infidelity, essentially. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it really is, it's just to know these things. So if any of the women that are single, and like when I'm talking to single women, you better believe I'm going to get into that, because those things matter. Just saying I want someone who's financially successful, what the heck does that mean? That's going to be something different to me. To, and I get very much in the business, like, okay, let's really talk about that. And I want you to feel it in your body, Mary, when I say, this is like the hypothetical Mary, when this is happening. I had something come up with one of my clients, and she's like, she had left, a yucky marriage a couple of years ago. And most women work with me for a while, because I see them through different stages of life, which I love that. But she's starting to date again, and she basically stated what she wanted, and like her advertisement, so to speak, we call it in our world. And she's like showing with a faith-based man. There was some other things she said. And then she goes, Sandy, what I realize is I actually need to be a little bit more clear. Like, I want to be with somebody who actually will have a drink. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I went out with this guy and he is in recovery. Nice guy. And I realized, she goes, not that I drink that much, but I wanted to go, or he wanted to take me somewhere, and I went to order a drink. And she goes, I know not everybody in recovery would be like this, but I realized that, I want to go line dancing, and I want to do this and that. And she was just very honest. And I was like so proud of her, because when I met her, she would have never spoken her needs. And so she's like, the way we workshopped her profile was in a way that was let someone know that she's, like what her real interests are. Not just like what looks good on paper, but like what she loves to do. And what she didn't have to say drinking on there. But it was a way that she's like, I realized that I actually want someone that I could open up a bottle of wine with and have glass of wine. She's like, I never would have thought that before.
How funny.
Isn't it funny? I mean, it is the art of specificity. And so that's her masculine. Her feminine is like, that was kind of, that didn't feel good. Like, but the masculine, like, I'm all right. I love wine. I want to be able to go to Napa. I really I love French wine. She had a trip planned to France. She's like, I make up the story she told herself that he wouldn't go. Now, again, it depends on where somebody's in recovery, but she said, I just realized that that's something that really matters to me. And she felt bad about it at first. Like something was wrong. Like, I'm being judgmental. I'm like, listen, we all judge. We all judge a little bit. And the sooner
we have to survive.
Yes, exactly. So to go, we're not supposed to judge. Well, let's just talk about that for a minute. How many of us have used that? I'm Southern Baptist. So this is, I got it good. So I was like, okay, so I'm not going to judge. Well, it's the way, to your point, our brain is going to know our yeses and our nos. So the more that we're embodied, the more that we can actually trust what our body's telling us.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's get into the quiz. Do you mind getting into that real quick?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
So share with the audience the test that I took and what that was about.
Yes.
I was surprised, but I wasn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay. So I have this quiz, and it's this sandysembler.com/quiz. I know it's going to be in the show notes, but it's a very simple quiz that you're going to take. It just takes a few minutes, and we ask you some questions, and it'll allow us to determine like your core energy, masculine and feminine. And it's not gender specific. Just like you and I found out, we're women. And, when I first like took something like this, I showed up, a little more masculine. And with you, it was just a couple skews off, because I went and dove into it a bit. And I'll tell you where it comes from. For you, in fact, I'll just pull it up right here. I'm going to be careful like what I say, because I don't want to like skew people and what they answer. But the way we ask these questions is very simple. It's, it's a matter of like, what do you, and don't think too much about it. It's like, what do you love most? What matters most to you? You mentioned something very telltale. Lisa, you said, when you were talking about your podcast, like you love the setting up of it all. You love the getting ready for it. You love the feeling of it. But you said, and you also like the other part too. I mean, not the editing part as much as like getting ready for it and getting prepared for it. But that has a great mixture in there. I mean, I would ask you, do you love structure? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that if she has said no, that she's not, that she's not have masculine energy. But if someone would prefer structure over a lot of variety, that also having that certainty, if you follow Tony Robbins' work, someone who's always certainty driven is going to have a lot less. And we're going very high level here, of course, guys. So if somebody wants more certainty, is not going to welcome as much variety and spice in their life. And I know I was like that too, because I was in such survival mode. Again, I've seen, women who are CPAs and engineers who need to be detailed like that and structured. Their worlds rocked when they start doing this work, because they realize that they don't lose their edge by actually allowing their feminine to come in. Something else that you mentioned is, your way of working through problems is like, you want to basically just with your life is you want to go in there and like workshop and kind of get it done. And I'm kind of like mincing words a bit, simply because when they take the quiz, they don't skew the results. But, I would ask you, and by the way, I'm like that too. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No,
there's not. I want to like fix it. So it's not just problem, is it life? Like you wanting to go in there, for example, oh my God, real life time. You and I had that conversation. It brought up something within you that you got really curious about. Hello, feminine energy. And the masculine in you obviously picked up the phone and messaged your therapist. And I want to have a conversation about this, right? That is, to me, that's responsibility. Now, I have seen some women who are so in their feminine that they're not grounded at all. They're like sleeping around, or they're having affairs, or they're like paying their bills on time. And, so it's why, to the beginning of this conversation, to have both energies really, really matters. Is there something about it in particular that you like to talk about, just so I can make sure that I'm serving you? Is there something about it that you were curious about?
Well, my curiosity, I wish I would have taken this test like 10 years ago.
Okay.
I bet I was much more masculine then, because I would imagine being in survival mode.
Yeah.
Puts you in the complete masculine role, because you're just, 100% just trying to get things done, just trying to get through the day. Right.
Well, think about it. You're controlling your environment. You don't want any surprises, because if there are surprises, like I mentioned in my childhood, right? So I've had to literally learn to be able to chill, to like go with the flow. I'll give you an example. This guy behind me, Lucas, see how he's just, he doesn't have a care in the world. If you would see Lunabelle, my older corgi, who's like a year and a half older, when we brought her home, she was unfortunately bit by my 15-year-old at the time, like literally bit on the snout. She's been with us now 4 years. She's just now, it makes me want to cry, just now. And by the way, that dog, Walker, who bit her, who's no longer with us, was the sweetest dog. We didn't wait long enough to get a new dog after we lost Chloe. I say that though, but this one here, I mean, he's been like that his entire life. Luna though has just started sleeping on her back. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, because I'm the same mom, all the things, and my point is that he hasn't really experienced his nervous system, a lot of fear and she has. And so, I mean, we're the same. I mean, we remember, bodies remember. That's what's so amazing about like, Peter Levine's work. One of my teachers is like the body keeping score. That's why animals shake. That's why I'm going to give that practice to shake. Like they literally will, they will freeze, or they'll fawn, or, they will do all the F's, and then they'll get up, and if the tiger didn't eat them, they're like, heck yeah. They shake it off and they keep going, and they don't ever remember it again. Yeah. It's crazy when you think about it. So anyway, Luna is just starting to do this thing. So yeah, of course, when we're in survival, of course, because and also our energy. Remember, the masculine is also the hunter. He's the he and all of us that go, conserving energy. That's why, just FYI, whoever's talking more in the relationship or in that moment is probably more in their feminine, because whoever's moving more, whoever's moving more is in their feminine, because the more masculine being as a whole is going to conserve energy and speak less and move less. So when women, that's why I say, ladies, have your sisters. That's why I love my sisterhood, because most of us think, especially look at, I don't watch TV anymore, but I remember when Cameron used to watch Nick at Night. I mean, not Nick at Night, but Nickelodeon, and those shows that just emasculate men like crazy. And then there's generally a single mom, and the guys are like hanging out with the women, and they're like talking like they're girlfriends. We don't want our men to be our girlfriend. We want them to be our friend, but not our girlfriend, right? So whoever's talking more, again, and we're conserving energy. So we're controlling our output. Why? Because we want to know what's going on in the room. Like, where do we need to put our energy? It's the masculine in all of us. Isn't it fascinating?
It is fascinating, because I sit and I think about Larry and I, and I'm the talker.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. That's why your feminine is so, and the more that I've gotten to know you, like I even know like how to actually evoke that even more with you. And so like when we work with couples, it's really fun, because to teach men, like really, how can they bring that out? But it only takes one generally to do the work to shift the relationship. And I mean, you're a highly feminine being, and obviously you feel super safe with him.
Totally. He's my first truly safe place. Yeah. Safe person for sure. But you were saying earlier though, that you said I'm like just a point or two, because I am masculine, because I did test masculine, which didn't surprise me, but did surprise me, which is funny. But you said that I'm
2 points off.
2 points from being feminine.
Yeah. And I tell you where the one that was, that really what motivated you was, instead of like using your natural innate gifts, that part about striving, that part about striving to create, using my gifts to create a legacy through creation. That's what really makes a difference, versus striving to create love and connection in the world. I want people to feel better just because they met me. So striving to do anything versus just allowing yourself to be the gift.
That was the thing that threw me over into the masculine.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it.
No, it's just interesting.
But you feel the difference. Yeah. And again, you're accomplishing the same goal. It's just a matter of your being and your essence, and how you versus like what you're doing and the way your mind thinks about it. That's all. I mean, there was a couple other things in here too. I mean, obviously it was let's see the part around commitments, like how you view commitments. Where do you put that part of you that like whether you have commitments and someone being trustworthy and you being trustworthy, like you taking pride in being trustworthy, versus, I remember obviously it's all of these things for all of us, but like what's more prevalent is versus just like appreciating the zest for life, letting life just come as it comes, knowing that you have the agency to be able like to make that your truth or not. It's like the buoyancy of life. I mean, are we allowing life just to come and we're buoyant with it? Or are we attempting to, understand it? Yeah. I mean, look, totally. I mean, even for me, that my one of my top 2 needs is growth. And I recognize one of the reasons why I love growth so much, especially because this past weekend I did UPW again for the first time. Tony's one of his events for the first time in years. And I recognize that my growth orientedness serves me, because I love to workshop things and feel it and then bring it out to the world. But it also comes from a place of survival, because I mentioned about my childhood earlier. I used to not love surprises. I've learned to allow myself to like surprises. It's the kind of surprises that I'm talking about, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So growth oriented for me has allowed me to understand things, but that's mind's way of having certainty that I will know what to do the next time that thing happens. So it actually, if I'm not allowing myself to be in the woods and sniffing dirt and play with my puppy and, eating yummy foods or being in my pleasure, so to speak, if I was just growth oriented when I first started doing this work, that's why personal development is so self-focused, because it's personal development, right? It is what it is.
You can't change anybody else. You can only change this.
Totally. And it's like, but there's a spin on it too, when you start understanding this dynamic of how is all this what am I transmitting out to the world? Because we're always transmitting. We are always transmitting. And I don't mean like we have our lipstick on right, but I mean, is our heart open?
Mm-hmm.
And
people can feel your energy. They can feel where you're at,
100%.
especially when you've done a lot of work. You can feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can always tell when a woman has done women's work, how she can receive compliments, like we mentioned earlier, but also how is she allowing herself to, I actually did a post about this today. Does she feel like she needs to fill in the empty spaces? And we call that spiritual duct tape. Like, will you allow yourself to put the spiritual duct tape on your mouth and allow him to talk, or even your girlfriend to talk? Or are you always trying to interject and self-reference? Again, women want to be included. That primarily makes us feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So women will bond over problems. Generally.
Yes.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah. Versus that's why I like to be in masterminds and things like that with women like yourself, who actually we will still bond in likeness, but we like to bond over like, how can we change the world versus, bitching about, what our kids or our husband or the world or politics or COVID or whatever the flavor of the month is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Cause when you stop and you think about it, if we sit there and we're fussing and we're complaining about whatever, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't put you in a good place.
No, but girl, it will, but we can get addicted to our problems.
I know.
If it meets those needs. How many of us feel good after like meeting with going to bunko? I always say bunko because this is when I first realized this was happening. I stopped going. Like all these women like talking about their problems and this, and then you leave. Or my goal is I always want people to feel better after they leave me. I had an intention doing this podcast, like how I want them to feel. And it'll trick the brain. Is why we can get addicted to podcasts or self-help, because our brain's like, oh, I'm going to listen. Now I'm going to do one thing from what Sandy said. And then it's like, oh, that felt really good. So I'll listen to another one. I'll listen to another podcast. So it's like, we have to be mindful, no pun intended, of like what we're putting into our mind, but also, our bodies, because, that's what we can get addicted to. I get our hairdresser, for example, and we share with our hairdresser, and God, I hope they zip up their energy and cut cords at the end of the day, because they're holding so much space. We can get the same dopamine push for talking to the bartender or talking to a girlfriend. And that's also why it's so important, again, back to women's work. And, I know, like we have a sisterhood coming up and I'm taking applications, and I take applications because it's such an intimate group where we're having conversations like this, but we're going even deeper. And then I'm able to like parachute in and we can really go there, but you're being witnessed by other women who they're light-minded in the sense that they want to grow and shift, and they're a little nervous about it. And there's something in the quantum field that when we are witnessed, that it will allow there to be more everlasting change, because it's become reality. Versus if you do it behind the scenes, you could still do it, behind the scenes if we never even talked about it, but it will just take longer. That's all.
Yeah, it is powerful. I know what you're talking about. It's really powerful, especially when you're in a room with like-minded and you do go deep and it is a safe place.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too with that, and that embodied no, the embodied yes, embodied no that I like to share is, I've even had this happen where it kind of bit me in the tush with clients of mine. And one of my clients she does amazing shell work. And when I bought my new house, she made a mantle. It's like these gorgeous shells. And she was this totally so feminine when I first met her. And I remember when she gave me my invoice and she said, I want you to know that because of you, I raised my prices. I'm like, well, did you give me the SakredShe discount? She's like, no. She's like, I know my worth. And I'm like, you go, girl.
I love it. Oh, it did come back to bite you, but you were so proud of her.
I was so proud. Like, that was so great. Now, she did do some other work for me and she did give me a discount, but it was like, that was so incredible. I'm like,
oh my God.
Way to go. But again, that I do find that women generally, women probably would really be ruling the world now if we actually really were a lot more secure allowed our masculine energies to be healed, where we know our worth and we don't feel like we have to, compete, but we know our worth and we can state our prices or state our worth or ask for a raise, or, oh my God, set boundaries with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
healthy, loving female relationships.
100%.
That's a tough one.
It is. And that's why when a woman will interview with me, sometimes I will, there's a lot of places people can work with me without ever talking to me. But there's the sisterhoods one, and then obviously mentorship. And when I talk to a woman, she may really want one-on-one, and I will do more business coaching. In fact, I do business coaching within that, but also within relationships. So we can make it whatever she wants it to be. And I curate a program just for her. But I may talk to a woman and know that one-on-one would be good for her. But then she talks about her mother wound or her sister wound. And I'm like, listen here, girl. And a lot of times women will do both at the same time. And there's a way that I can workshop the package. But because I find that I was like this, I thought women that were girly were like ridiculous. I did not like women.
How funny.
I know, you wouldn't know that, right?
No.
Oh my gosh. I was like, please, so I was repping that jewelry line and had that huge team, that international team. I taught women, this is before my intervention, how to basically go out there and crush it. And with jewelry of all things, right? But I didn't give a darn about the jewelry. It was more like the business behind it, because I really respected Jessica, the CEO. But my point is that I just thought that women that were moving around basically like I am now, it just, would start down one topic and then I'd, like Jimmy from Family Circus end up, I'm dating myself, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like at the cartoon and he ends up over here. A woman who's in her feminine can track with me. If whatever men are watching this, like, okay, we're talking about what? Okay.
I totally get that, because I could totally follow. I have people in my life that and then they go off course and like, what was I saying? Oh, you were over here. You were
exactly right.
You're back on track.
And it's such a feminine trait. And and so like when I'm doing a workshop, for example, and it's on a particular topic, like I will not use scripts. I don't love to use, my team used to want me to do this, but it always flopped, is to use, what do they call it? Slide. I can't even say it, slides. I like to come on, but I do have to be bulleted. I do have to have notes, or I will, I can, I know I've got a class tonight. I got to conserve my voice. I know we'll close up in a bit, but but that's the masculine, like within me, that knows that to serve, like I mentioned earlier. But it's so fun to talk to women who actually can, like you and I just did. We go all over the place and we end up right back where we need to be, because we also trust that we're going to deliver whatever it is supposed to be delivered. And I think that if you and I did some work together, even if it's just from this time together, I believe if you took that quiz again, there's a different way you might actually give it, a way of appreciating the way you're showing up and trusting, and also trusting that the gifts that you're bringing out there, everything works out as it should. That does not mean that we don't have agency or that we set ourselves up for success. So yeah, I think I just want to make sure we touch on that too. Do you feel, I want to make sure I'm holding space for you, regarding what you mentioned about your family, because that was such a deep share. Did I cover what you wanted me to cover regarding that? Okay, good.
Yeah. I just want to touch on that because it's funny, because before I did the podcast, I didn't share any of my life, and I would never share any of this stuff. All this stuff was like in my head. And now I'm just like, you know what? I need to put it out there, because what was attached to it before was shame. Shame is what kept me quiet. And it was for, just because of the dynamics of my abuse, everything was my fault. Everything was my fault, So so then you just get to the point where you don't talk about stuff, because somebody's just going to turn around and say, what was your fault anyway? And now I'm in a place where I'm going to share this stuff because it's part of my past. It's not who I am. It's not my identity. I don't have the shame around it. And if I put it out there, maybe somebody else is going to be able to identify with it, and it can help them.
100%. I heard an acronym about shame, and it was, should have already mastered everything.
Oh, that is so me.
Or listen to this, and this really touched me. Or self-hatred at my expense.
Oh, dang. Those are good. I've never heard those. But that first one, because I was raised like that, where I should have always known. I should know. I carried that until about 5 years ago.
Well, hello to that. You dropped that like a hot.
That baby's gone. Yeah, that's not my fault. I shouldn't know. I'm not going to know that. I don't know. I'm not the knower of everything. I'm not.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 I mean, shame is such a different energy too, besides guilt. I mean, those are obviously the lowest level of consciousness, right? And it lives right in our root, right? That part of that where our coccyx bone is. When I started doing this work too, it was interesting how much was being held in my body. That, there's the coccyx bone. My little baby is so cute. The coccyx bone, which is that little part of there's our tailbone.
It's your tailbone, yeah.
At the end of our spine. If you've gone through a lot of trauma, it, like a dog's tail, goes under when it's scared. If you've gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of times it's actually,
Ooh.
Yeah. So when I started doing the embodiment work and the movement that I teach, I had a somatic experience where it literally, I felt that the energy shift where it actually, went out the right way. I'm not using the medical term, but you can go in there. Like, I know you have surgery to have that happen, but you don't have to have that. It actually is an experience. And I don't practice yoga. I don't do Kundalini or any of that. It was a Kundalini experience where I had so much energy flowing through my body because I had so much stored here because of trauma.
Yeah. So I had 2 back surgeries.
Okay. Yeah.
Lower back.
It will. And what I love about this work too, is that, I mean, obviously we're doing a lot of talking about it, but if we were working together, I teach people how they can do this at home. They don't have to come to a class. Like tonight I'm teaching class. So we're going to move a lot of things through us, but it's about moment to moment practicing too, and being aware. And then, for example, if you're walking through a door frame, can you actually do a body scan and go, oh, am I tightening my jaw?
Ooh, yeah.
Can I do a little hip circle? Can I toss my hair? And it allow us to be in work mode. We're in Zoom Redwood mode here. But then I can go take a break after this, and I can go get a sip of water and taste the water, feel the water, smell the water. I can go through the doorway to the restroom, and I can, do a check and feel in my jaw tight. And we hold so much right here. So much.
I have to watch that all the time. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just little practices I love to give women so they can really feel. And if we are in fight or flight a lot, if we are in New York City, for example, or we are, up here alone, and I'm noticing more here, remember, that there's that part, like it's the bite. I will bite, and it's biting for protection. So, I mean, these little things here, again, we're doing a lot of this in the head, but when you can tie it all together, which of course I love to learn it all, it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Makes sense. It makes sense. And for me, understanding, it opens a door for me.
Well, just like I mentioned earlier, for me, sister, I mean, I feel you. Like, for me to understand means perhaps there's a way that I can prevent that from happening again. And it comes from childhood. So I don't knock myself for that anymore. And I can tell you too, I mean, I had so many partners through my life that would put me down for that, or what do you need? What else do you need to know? And what I am is like, my need to know is like, but how do I experience? Now I experience my learning. So it's less of like, who am I being in the moment? Before it was controlling because I wanted to control my environment. Now it's, well, what does that mean? Like you just said, like, that's so interesting. How can I apply that to my life? How can I make my life
curious?
Yeah, exactly. And the feminine is the part of being curious. And so she's one of our archetypes. When I talk about the 10 women that live inside of us, she's one that is very, very childlike, and not in a well, it is a little girl, but there's also like our joyful, and she's playful, fun. Like she'll blow bubbles, and grown women that are, catching the Napa train. And I saw a video of me the other day, like catching the Napa train. I'm like skipping down the sidewalk there. And there was a time that I would not have done that because I was so bound in my own mind of, what are people going to think about me? Which is honestly toxic feminine, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Toxic feminine. Yeah, it is worrying about what everybody else thinks. Yeah. I don't care anymore. I laugh at myself. I used to not laugh at myself. It was horrifying. Now I laugh at myself. I'm like,
I got it. I don't care. I love it. And it'll be really beautiful to see as you alchemize and workshop what you're experiencing now and what's coming up for you.
Mm.
And I always say, like, well, what does this really mean? And what is this trying to teach me? You know, and that also welcomes the inquiry even more without me having to wear it as a burden per se, but still feel it fully. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, it's so fresh right now for me. So I'm doing a lot. I'm trying to find the balance too, of not thinking about it so all the time, you know, not being in my head and just kind of processing a little bit. And I'm doing a lot of self-care.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, I actually, there's so many things I'd love to share with you. I have and in fact, I think
maybe what we should do is we should connect after, you know, in the next week or so and talk.
For real. We will. I'm just saying, I'm wondering if Carrie gave, the embodied clearing practice. She gave an body softening practice, or there's an embodied practice that I normally give, and I can, when is it?
I don't know.
I'll make sure that I get that to you, but
okay.
You can share it with your audience too. It's a free practice. It's a free practice, but there's so much in your body right now. I can feel it.
I know. And I know.
Well, I mean, and I would say, honestly, I mean, okay. Are you open to me doing a practice with you now? Is before we yeah. So something that you can, when you're, and this is literally an embodied practice I learned from this amazing teacher. It's called the gibberish practice. And it is literally, you will tell me, like, talk for 1 minute about something from your childhood that, you know, it doesn't have to be disturbing necessarily, but tell me just for 1 minute, and I'll actually, I'll time you.
I'm actually gonna do something fun.
Yeah. I want you to, we'll practice it twice. We'll practice something that's tough for a minute. And when I say go, and let me just tell you what it would look like. It's called
Do you just make noise?
It's gibberish. Everybody, you know, I mean, you hear about people having their prayer language. This is me, like, speaking. So you're going to, and this is great because it scrambles the brain. You still get to express it, but like, if you feel like, if you have kids, it's great because you can go into like, but there's something literally, we call it sacred gibberish practice. So just notice your body. We'll go like,
let's do like not a whole minute, because
let's do like 15 seconds.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep going. And time.
Oh.
So were you telling me something that was like,
it was fun?
Okay, got it.
It was positive.
So tell me something that actually, like,
it was exciting.
Tell me something that was dark. Like, tell me something that's dark. Whether it's about your family or not. And go.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know if I could say words.
Yeah, but you don't say words. I keep going. Five more seconds. In time.
It's like speaking in tongues.
Well, I mean, it scrambles the brain, and it actually, it allows you to feel the feelings, and then also, but scramble so it doesn't feel so attached to you.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Cool, huh?
I felt it, but it didn't stick.
It was, yes, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, I would say
I do that a lot. I do that a lot.
Shake it all out.
Yeah.
But that part, the gibberish practice. So anytime it feels like, because you mentioned it feels like it's right here. So we don't want to pretend like it's not there. But especially if you can get in, if you weren't like mic'd up, you had to get in your body and pace. I mean, literally set your timer on your phone and just give yourself 5 minutes, and just get up and walk around. Yeah. And I was talking about the spiritual duct tape, and then I went down the path of that thing. But I actually, there's a reel that I did, and I said, you know, that you have a tendency to, cheers, have a tendency to interrupt to fill the space. I'll go back to that part, interrupt to fill the space. Or I know for me, when I'm stressed out and I am especially what my husband and I just went through a couple months ago, I started interrupting him a lot, even though I know what I know. And I realized I was subconsciously afraid of what he was going to say.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's a way, but it's a way to control. Interrupting is a way to control, because we're trying to control what they're going to say or not say. Right? Very nuanced.
That's something I had to work on too, because I've gotten a lot better, but I have to be very aware of it.
It is awareness. And so for me, like I mentioned in that reel today, or that whatever it was, it's called spiritual duct tape. And so you imagine, like, what's better for the world? Do I need to say that? And so you imagine, like, but for me in this meeting, it was I told my client, I get a big cup of water, and I want you to, every time that you want to open your mouth, just your spiritual duct tape. Hello.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, it works. You might end up having to go to the bathroom a lot.
I'm a huge water drinker, so it's not a problem for me.
Yeah, it's spiritual duct tape, but there is, there's all these Sandy-isms, SakredShe-isms in our community, but it's like that spiritual duct tape, because what is best for the world. And I know, and the Sacred Respect, the course that I'm offering to your audience at the discount we go through, it's a 30-day relationship reset. And it's a relationship reset, not only with your partner, but a relationship with the masculine. It really, you don't go through the cleanse and all of that. Like I mentioned earlier, if someone's in a deeper, more intimate container, this is a self-study. But it really will allow you to, in 30 days, be embodied. There's practices in there to keep it fun. I don't think healing has to be arduous, but also noticing those, because I think awareness is, awareness is the first step to everything change. You can't change what you don't even know is happening.
Exactly. I say it all the time in my podcast that, to get anywhere, you have to have self-awareness. Yeah. Because otherwise you're not going to catch anything. You're not going to realize anything.
Well, and that's why I love sisterhood so much, is to be with women who love you so much that they won't allow you to be anything less than who you are. But it's also in how you share. And like I mentioned earlier when we were, getting started, is, that part around, what I loved. And with women's work, it's like, are you open to a reflection? Or feedback. And because not everybody, women want to share, they want to share their opinion as how we're liked or disliked, or, is how we can vet if people are safe. But most of the time, let's admit it, when we are sharing, it generally is from our own experience and not necessarily about theirs. So that's a way, like a governor on your mind and your tongue, to go, are you open to a reflection or feedback? Again, the women's work allows women to really hone their masculine, like to observe, to curb their tongue, and to really have boundaries around what they're saying, not just for themselves, but for the experience. And they're deeper human beings for it. And I always say, if I can just help women just go 1 inch deeper in consciousness and 1 inch wider in their expression, the world will be better. Now, we always do more, but if that's what this does tonight, so be it. And so.
Well, so on that note, why don't you share all the great stuff that you are offering to our audience and how they can reach you as well?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And I know you have some things in the show notes, but we did for you after that incredible conversation you and I had. God, I would just say that was so nurturing for me. I felt like I had gone out to coffee with a friend. So thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And I'm really looking forward to, us talking again for sure. So Sacred Respect is what we just spoke of. And that is, we've offered, your audience a discount for that too. And that is the course I just mentioned. The sisterhood is my 6-month women's journey, where it's an intimate container, where we literally have modules where we go through, the masculine, the feminine, how to evoke something better for the world through your feminine energy, how to pay more closer attention. Also, we work with trauma, whether it's big T or little t, even if it's not something you've been experienced with, attachment styles. We also, at the end, we really are, what's your core desire? Like, what is it that you really want and desire from within? And then how can you become that version of you so you can evoke it from your current partner, or obviously your partner to be? And we go through the sacred relationship vision, and I use meditation and theta healing. And I have all these incredible modalities in this body and mind. I love to share it in this container. And that also includes a live event. And then there's my mentorship, where I work with around 10 women at a time. And I know I have some slots coming up, which is always fun, bringing people into the new year. And then I have some other self-study courses, but all of that is on my website, sandysembler.com. And then the quiz, we want to make sure everybody takes, because the quiz will get you started in this journey. And I know that's in the show notes too, sandysembler.com quiz. And then IG, I do have a free Facebook group that has around 2,000 women in it. I'll make sure that we drop your link in there. It's a free space there. I do teachings in there as well, and that's incredible. IG is where I like to play a lot too, just because it's fun, because I get to like do my sacred theater and teach, with those little short videos. I'm all out. I'm out there. I never thought I'd ever Google myself, but I actually Googled myself the other day for the first time, and I was like, whoa, holy cow.
Are you really out there?
I mean, I'm like, there's some stuff out there. There's video. John and I, we have like there's YouTube stuff, and I'm just like, holy cow, there's some stuff. There's nothing that I was embarrassed by, thank God. But I was
all
like,
good stuff.
You're like, wow, when they say it's out there, it's out there. So yeah. So anyway, that's
all good stuff.
All good stuff. Yeah. So thank you. I honor you for stepping up and being brave to share your story and in such a way that's so empowering. I work with lots of women, and it's just so interesting that even some women who are self-actualized, they're still sharing their story from a place of story, like victimhood. And
I was gonna say victim.
Yeah, I really, or the martyr, you know what I mean? Still victim. And or they're the self-grandiose hero. And, I'll actually close with this too, or potentially close in just a second. But I found out that my own work this year as, someone who really believes that they can do anything, which feels like a beautiful thing of self-confidence. A lot of times that's a trauma response too, especially someone who's experienced CPTSD, because you have to believe you can do everything, especially if you were neglected as a child. And so I realized for myself that my brother and I were separated when my parents split up, and he is a much different being. He's always, I admire you and your drive and this and that. My daddy coddled him a little bit more than my mom did. Mom and I were out there, because financially we needed to, like we were, all the things. Again, thank you, Daddy, for the hard lessons. And so it comes from a place of the way I was raised or not raised. So I do believe I can do anything. And then when, my teacher shared with me, you do understand that there's a part of you that has this like feeling like you can always win. I'm like, well, because I can. I was like, but I can. And she's like, and oh, is that a problem? She goes, I was like, what? And then she goes, well, let me tell you why. And I was like, oh my gosh, my head. So now in my courses, as I went and got trauma informed and really dug in, and I love somatic work with breath work, I was like, people have got to know these things. And then I can refer them to deeper teachings if it brings up, other pieces. But otherwise, we're just putting lipstick on a pig. And I don't want to do that. I want people to have the deepest, richest experience. And I will, as y'all can tell, I like to have fun in my teachings. The way I just experience you here, like in my sisterhood, there's always something that comes through. Someone says something, I go, hey, why don't you try this? And it's like on the job training. And then you embody it. Like you'll never forget gibberish, whether you ever do it again or not. You know what I mean? Yeah. But thank you so much. I honor you. And what I loved so much about this practice was just how authentic you are. I find you to be really a woman of great integrity, but also a woman who's so curious about how she can, be even more, not just for the world, but really for herself and also feeling for your family.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'll say this, the thing that motivated me to heal is I didn't like the way I felt. I did recognize that. I had enough self-awareness to know that I didn't like the way I felt inside, and I wanted to change it.
Yeah, I get that. And I was going to do a take two real quick, and don't cut this out. What I love most about this practice with you is that you have basically, I'll cut it short. You have such a beautiful way of expressing your heart and your desire to be better for the world, not just for the world, but what I make up is really for yourself and for your family. And you have one line.
I receive that. I receive that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Yeah. This is like one of my sessions. It's perfect. Thank you for that. experience me. And I may actually even use this and let them use it on my website. Like, what's the session with Sandy like? Well, here you go.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
Absolutely.
you so much. You are a gem, and I'm looking forward to deepening our relationship too. So,
Oh yeah, we're definitely staying connected. That's for sure.
yeah. Thank you, girl. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.